This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is Tuesday, the 10th of October, 10/10/23. My name is Peter Kafka, and I usually moderate the second Tuesday of each month. So this is my turn, came up. I want to mention briefly our sponsors, who were very happy to have their support, their financial support, and their recognition of the value of peer support groups. And they include the pharmaceutical companies Bayer, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, of which Janssen is their part of them, and Myovant, as well as Foundation Medicine and Myriad, which are genetic testing outfits, and scan outfits Blue Earth and Telix. And we're very appreciative for their support, and we're not beholden to them, and we're not pushing their products, and we're not endorsing anything, but they are no strings attached supporters of us, and we're grateful. So welcome, everybody. So I want to start out, if you give me a moment this evening, with a different track here, with some not so good news. This past weekend, we lost two of our brothers, compatriots. And you will, no doubt, many of you recognize the names and miss the faces because they were participants for a number of years. One was Carl Foreman, and I think last time I moderated a month ago, I mentioned that Carl had just gone into home hospice because his spine collapsed and he was paralyzed from the waist down. And amazingly enough, I happened to be in Princeton, New Jersey 2 weeks ago, and I had opportunity to jump on Uber and go over and visit him. He was only 20 minutes away, and I spent an hour with he and his wife, and I was optimistic. I thought, even though he was bedridden and had to have care and not able to move the lower part of his body and take care of himself, his spirits were strong. He was cognizant. He was there. He was bright and he was cheerful, and I was one of the first visitors he had, and he was kind of reticent to have visitors because he wasn't sure how long people would stay and whether he'd have the energy to keep up with them. And I was pleasantly surprised, and I reassured him that I thought he had a long way to go. But unfortunately, over the weekend, Saturday morning, he passed on. I called to check on him, and his wife answered the phone and let me know that he had passed away that morning. So very sad. And Carl was a young man, diagnosed in his 50s, and with serious disease. He had a BRCA mutation, and unfortunately, it was germline BRCA, and he passed it on to both his daughters, who were at this time wrestling with the implications of that. So it's had a profound effect on his family. So we're sorry to lose Carl. And the other one, which I just heard about, is Ken Anderson. And Ken, another young man, and is diagnosed in his 50s, strong, athletic, indomitable spirit. Ken visited me several times on Maui because his sister has a condo there. He hiked my butt off a number of times. As sick as he was, and was on many treatments he was on, I think last time he visited, he was on his 30th chemo session, and he could still out hike me and leave me in the dust. Although he patiently waited, knowing that he had more energy than I did. wonderful man. It breaks my heart to know that Ken passed away. He fought very bravely and very hard, and came to the point where there were just no more treatment options that were available to him. He had a great oncologist at MD Anderson, and they tried everything for him, but it was not in the cards for Ken. So it was about a 7-year battle for him. Again, as I said, a young man who knew from the get-go that this was not good. I remember the night that Ken called in to the first meeting here, and he was scared shitless of what this disease might mean, and rightly so, as many of us are. So, as I mentioned in the low and intermediate group, not to scare anybody last night, but we all know, those of us on this call tonight, that this disease is nothing to turn your back on or mess around with. It could well take our lives. That's why we're in the advanced and recurrent group, because we are some of the unfortunate ones that fall in that slot where we might well die from this disease instead of with this disease. So with that said, I'd like to just take maybe 30 seconds of silence just to think a little bit on Carl and Ken, but also on each other as we look at each other here. I mean, none of us would have met, or very few of us would have met in our lives had it not been for this disease bringing us together in this mode. So how appreciative we are for the support of each other, the ongoing and support of each other, and the indomitable spirit that each one of us carries. So let's take 30 seconds of just to contemplate how valuable we are to each other. Okay. I'll open it up for a few minutes. I know Jim Ward has some thoughts. He was very close with Ken, because they were both young men diagnosed, and anyone else who might want to have something to say. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, thanks, Peter, and thanks for indulging me on making some comments about Ken. I think a lot of us knew Ken because he was in this group for a long time, and even though his participation kind of waned over time, but I met him early in my journey because we both had the same primary GU Med onc at MD Anderson, Houston, and we became good friends from there, based on a lot of shared interests, kind of centered around the great outdoors and hiking. And I can also vouch for Ken as an amazing person who hiked my butt off, and I thought I was a pretty good hiker. But I think those of us who know Ken know that he was never happier than when he was doing something outdoors, whether it was hiking or camping or fishing up in the Pacific Northwest. And I was lucky enough to hang out with him up in the Pacific Northwest and to enjoy doing some outdoors things with him. But I think at the end of the day, I think what stands out for me about Ken is he was one of the kindest guys that I've ever met. He was kind, he was patient, and he always gave more than he took. And he always kept a good attitude through a lot of treatments, as Peter mentioned. I almost never heard Ken really complain about anything, and he never really got down on himself. And you know, the example I would give is I talked to him 2 weeks ago, and his stepfather had some health issues, and he couldn't mow the lawn for his mom and for Ken's mom and at that home. And 2 weeks ago, I talked to Ken on the phone, and he told me he was mowing his parent, his mother's lawn. I just said, "Oh, that's Ken," But yeah, he was an amazing guy, and so I just learned about this yesterday. So it's pretty raw for me, and it's probably pretty raw for a lot of other folks in this room. So thank you for letting me speak about Ken, and I'm sure that I haven't said anything that many of you don't already know about him.
Very good. Vic, you had something?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I didn't know Ken very long, but I did get to meet him for a short period of time, or get to know him for a short period of time prior to his recurrence. And he was truly an indomitable spirit. And my fondest memory is talking to him about fishing the salmon run on the Columbia this spring and then going digging mussels, I think it was. And he sounded like he was just having the best time in his life. And I was glad, to be able to remember him that way. I tried to stay in touch with him after I found out he was had a recurrence, but he was maybe a little bit aloof. I think he probably was struggling with a lot of things, and like Jim said, he was always the kind of person that liked to give more than he took. So I think that's probably part of the reason I had a difficult time staying in touch with him. But it was great to know him while I did. Wonderful man.
Well said. Anybody else have some words for Carl or Ken?
It's John. I'm really glad that you had such extremely up-to-date news about them, including what their spirits were like at the very end. I'm glad to hear that kind of information. Ken, there was something about Ken's voice that I used to love to hear his voice, and I think it was because of that kindness that was built into it, But thanks for for having such up-to-date news. And it's good to hear that Carl was in good spirits. We're more used to arguing with Carl than anything else, and yet here he was, with a good attitude within hours of his death. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I ate 2 bowls of ice cream while I was there. Good guy. Yeah. So,
How many did you eat, Peter?
None. Ice cream's not on my list these days, for years now. Yeah.
It's on my hospice list.
Yeah. When you unless I get my tonsils taken out. Yeah. So those days I think are gone. Yeah, when you lose 2 in the same weekend, it shook me up too. It still shakes me up. And just one little tidbit. Ken's mother. I had a chance to meet Ken's mom on Maui last year, and she's pretty remarkable. I mean, I think this is her 3rd of 4 children that she's lost in her lifetime. A wonderful, strong woman, but I mean, there's no word in the English language for the loss of a child. If a child loses a parent, they're an orphan. You lose a spouse, you're a widow or a widower, but there's no word for losing a child. You're not supposed to outlive your children, especially 3 out of 4 of them. So that family's going through a lot. I know that. As well as I said, Carl's with germline BRCA mutations in the family. A lot to think about. So this stupid disease has so many lines and threads crisscrossing all the way that have a lot of implications for all of us. So, sorry to open up on that sad note, but we don't want to keep that from anybody. Go ahead, Rick.
Just before you start, Len will not be joining us tonight. He just sent a note, an email. He's weaning off of Xgeva, and they gave him a dose of Zometa yesterday, which is kind of supposed to, in some way or shape or form, set the bones. I don't really understand the medics of that. Maybe Dr. Jeff could explain it. I don't know. But anyway, it's given him significant flu-like symptoms, which is a known side effect of Zometa. Doesn't happen very often. Unfortunately, when I got Zometa, it didn't happen to me, but it's pretty well documented, and he's feeling rotten, and he says that he may join a little bit later, but he's he's resting up, and he's got a flu with low-grade fever and full body aches and pains, a nasty headache and fatigue. He said he never had any of this from the Xgeva, but the Zometa is beating him up. So I think in all the years, this is the first time I've actually heard of somebody who's really gotten a bad side effect off of Zometa. So, but it can happen.
That's what it is.
Yes.
I hope he's not in the Jimmy Greenfield camp this week with COVID or flu or something like that. Yeah. I just contacted Len. Len just moved this past week, and he's in Connecticut, and he's across the border, and he's in New York, San Francisco. I had the opportunity to see he and Joanne while I was traveling as well as John. Yeah. So we're all, as I said, I mean, whether you think of yourselves in a brotherhood or as compatriots or whatever, we've crossed paths for a reason, and we're there for each other. Okay, let's see how we can help each other. Let's start with Bob Snyder. Well, actually, no, sorry. Let's start with Fred up in Vancouver, Washington. So, Fred, the way we're going to work it, I'm going to ask you some questions because you're new to this game, and just to give us an idea of where you're coming from, what's going on, and how we might be able to support you and address some of your concerns. Okay. So.
Okay.
Fred, how old are you?
77 today.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Level 7. And when were you diagnosed?
In 2002.
Okay. So quite a while ago. And what was the diagnosis in 2002? Gleason 7, further up, where were you?
2002 prostatectomy, Gleason 3+3.
3+3, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And where was this?
I don't understand the question. Where?
This was you were up in Vancouver, Washington at that time?
Oh, yes. This was, I had my surgery at Southwest Washington Hospital, Peace Health Hospital, Dr. Deckett.
Okay. And at a Gleason 3+3, what led him to think you needed surgery, or was that your decision?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I think they kind of, I was kind of, I guess, frightened into it, cancer and all that sort of thing, right. And I can't remember.
Right, because these days, if it's a true Gleason 3+3, it's usually not usually recommend people don't run, but something else happened apparently. You were probably misdiagnosed. So tell us what's happened since then, since that prostatectomy.
2000 and let's see, February of 2003, my PSA was 0.10. I've got a few bullets here, you'll see.
Okay.
And then because I watched the PSA rise, then in September of 2012, it was 0.53, 10 years. And then after that, I just didn't check it for 10 years. And in May of this year, my great primary guy, who I do like a lot, May of 2023, my PSA showed up at 15.2. And then in July 19th, 2023, it was 35.5. Then, on the same day, I had a CT scan, abdomen and pelvis. July the 20th, my PSA was 37.5 as a second opinion at a lab over in Portland. And on the 24th of August, I had a PSMA PET scan over at Legacy Salmon Creek outside of Vancouver. And then on September 22nd, fairly recently, my PSA checked in at 71.4. So it looks like
did the PSMA PET scan show anything?
Yes. Yes, it did. Yeah. And the impression, this is their impression. This is sort of like the mega summary. Radio tracer avid bone lesions in the sacrum, pelvis consistent with metastatic disease. They're more specific in the write-up. And that's kind of where I stand right now. I am seeing an oncologist, and we're thinking of doing the Lupron with Casodex starting on the 17th of this month. And I have to say, I'm not real crazy about all of this because I've basically eluded the pharmaceutical industry my whole life. I really don't take any kind of pharmaceuticals or anything like that. So the education that I've gotten from you fellas, done a great job for me already. And PCRI, Prostate Cancer Research Institute, other groups like that, kind of brought me up to speed. So, I'm just kind of going into this with hesitation. And I think I have a tendency to kind of, exaggerate in my own mind as to the negative outcomes of these treatments. But
do you have a medical oncologist at this point?
A medical oncologist is Dr. Cosgrove at Compass Oncology in Vancouver, Washington. And
okay.
I actually went to him for a second. I wanted to go to Compass for a second opinion on my PSMA PET scan reading. That's why I went there. But you have to have an appointment with an oncologist. So that's how I ended up with him. And he told me that, well, it's not going to make much difference anyway. He kind of, poo-pooed the idea of any kind of real second opinion on the reading of the PET scan. And he and I looked at that, and he showed me how basically everything was pretty clear in my body, except for those, the pelvis and the ilium and the sacrum area. And that's kind of how it stands now. But, looking at my doubling time, it looks like my PSA. This is speculation, of course. It could be up to 140, 150. I don't know.
How far are you from the University of Washington down in Seattle?
300 and some miles.
Well, quite a ways, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Rick had suggested in a conversation with him on the phone when I initially contacted AnCan, OHSU. And I do see, and I did ask about Dr. Tomas Beer, and they said that
Yeah, I don't know if he's
he,
seeing other people anymore.
he's
He's
gone
hard to
from
get.
OHSU. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah, and so anyway, OHSU is out there. Is I guess I mean I don't know that they're much better than what I have right now. I mean I'm just pleading ignorance. So um,
Yeah, so
it,
I think, how do you spell this doctor's name? Cosgo?
C O
C-O-Z-G-O?
Cosgrove,
Oh,
Cosgrove.
Cosgrove. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you were a little more explicit when you spoke to me, and he sort of dismissed all of this. Is he planning on giving you the Casedex before you start the Lupron, or at the same time?
He said that I would probably take it. I think he said 48 hours start on the Casedex before the Lupron to because that was one of my concerns. This high fat, this quickly rising
Yeah,
PSA, uh,
yeah.
and I'm on the ski slope here. I'm not down on the little hiking trail,
Right.
and I'm
So Fred, a couple of things. One, you should. Again, we can't give you medical advice. We can tell you what the protocols are. Well, some of us can give you medical advice on this call, but I certainly cannot. Um, but the protocol is that it should be at least 15 days. And if I were you, with that moving in your back the way it is, or certainly in your sacrum, um, you, I'd be taking 10 to 15 days of bicalutamide, Casedex, and I actually did when I started many years ago. And that is the protocol, unless he gives you a different drug. If he gives you Firmagon as an injection, or he gives you Orgovyx as a pill or a Lugolix, then he doesn't need to give you the Casedex. Now, if he's giving you Casedex plus Lupron as his therapy, that is an outdated, outmoded therapy. That is not standard of care. How many spots were seen in and around the sacrum and the pelvis?
I think two. Um,
Okay, so
uh,
if it was just two, then the standard of care would be an ADT drug, and we would recommend Orgovyx if you can get it, or a Lugolix, because it seems to be the best, and it's especially good if you're an older gent, because your testosterone comes back quicker after it, and we have evidence of that. Or Firmagon, and then one of three drugs, either abiraterone, actually four drugs: abiraterone, enzalutamide, apalutamide, or darolutamide. Those are the drugs that you should be discussing. And I have a concern because this guy doesn't seem to be going there. As I said to you, I think on the phone, he's not a genitourinary medical oncologist, and he may not be the right kind, the right doc for you. And at OHSU, I think I mentioned to you, Dr. Tom Beer has left. The person I'd go after is Julie Graff, and I think I gave you her name,
spell
but
that, please.
Graff, Julie Graff. She's really great. She's compassionate. She's really good. Sometimes it appears she's seeing patients at OHSU. She also has something to do with Kaiser, which I can't quite determine. and she would be the person. The problem right now is that the OHSU genitourinary group is in complete disarray. They just don't have anybody. There's one guy that I'm aware of who's in a OHSU satellite facility by the name of Stone, and you want to stay well away from him. He's treating the husband of somebody in our care partner group, and he won't even refer him to palliative care, which is a real concern of ours. We don't like this guy at all. And by the way, when I say palliative care, I'm talking about symptom management. I'm not talking about end of life.
When I looked at the oncologists available over there, I think I only came up with two. You told me genitourinary. I looked into that, and I think that's equated with a urologic oncologist, because they do, it's not.
No, the urologic oncologists are surgeons.
Yes, that's right. That's who they are. This guy named Ambling and Liu,
Right.
Liu.
Don't want a surgeon.
Now, Fred, if it was me, because of the seriousness of your disease, all of a sudden, and obviously it was probably misdiagnosed a long time ago, but that's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
If it was me, and it has been me, I mean, I live in Hawaii. When I was diagnosed 10 years ago, I made a beeline for California. I mean, I was not going to stay in Hawaii to seek treatment. I got on a plane and I flew, and I've done it numerous times since then. But I would make an initial trip up to the University of Washington and find an expert up there. And you might only need to make it on one trip, and then you can probably do telemedicine after that. And I mean, this is your life, and you want the best. And with PSA moving that fast, you want to get. If it was me, I'd want to get the best care I could and have someone really keep an eye on this, and be up to speed and up to date with the latest possible therapeutics that you can access. And you might be able to get your treatments locally if you need it, but at least you'd be under the guidance of someone, a genitourinary medical oncologist who was on their game. And you could
before you do that, verify that there is no GU medical oncologist, genitourinary medical oncologist, at OHSU, because OHSU is a very fine hospital. And if there is a GU med onc other than this guy Stone, who is not in the main campus anyway, then you'd be fine. I mean, if you were seen by Julie Graff, you'd be fine. But otherwise, then I think Peter has good advice. But let's make very sure that there isn't a GU medical oncologist that's available to you locally.
Okay. I'm kind of overwhelmed with all of the pharmaceutical names you gave me. I'm trying to make notes on this, and just for informational purposes. So, and when you say go to U of W, that right away, that makes me think, holy smoke, what does that mean? Go to U of W, wow, what does that involve?
It just means great doctor. It means great doctors rather than community doctors. That's all.
Yeah.
That are used to working with this disease.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you. And genitourinary, so I kind of, I'm going to keep that as a definite description of what I want, a genitourinary oncologist. So are you saying I should just cut the treatment plan for now? I mean, is that what I'm hearing? Should I start with tell him that I want to have 15 days of Casodex and then the Lupron, and have a discussion with him? What do you think?
Well, look, we can't give you that sort of medical
Okay,
information.
that's all right. I understand.
I wish we could, because I think we all have thoughts as to what you should do.
Uh,
Um, if it was me, I might start with an what's called an antagonist LHRH drug, because that would be safest. And you don't have to worry about the bicalutamide. So you want an antagonist LHRH drug. And then before you take any additional drug, meet with a GU medical oncologist, because you can't go wrong with the LHRH drug. And if you take an antagonist, it's going to be safe. And then you can decide your treatment plan from there. And that's what I personally would do. I think we should throw it out to the group and see what the group says.
Let me make sure I understood that. An antagonist LHRH type of drug.
I'll put
That's
it
right.
in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you know where the chat is, Fred?
I see a little box up there, a couple of
Yeah,
boxes. This is 3 on it, and
that's it.
I pulled it down, and there it was.
Right, you got it. And somebody's already put it. Jim
Okay.
Marshall already put genitourinary medical oncologist in there for you.
Oh,
And Dr. John's going to put some other stuff in there for you.
wonderful.
So anybody have any suggestions for Fred?
Yeah, I would.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Rick is spot on, because if you do what Rick would do, that's going to buy you a bit of time, and then if that'll give you time to find your GU med onc, and then really, get somebody who knows what they're doing and can go from there.
You know that how you know. So I don't think this is medical advice. How do I get that? How do I get that antagonist LHRH type of drug from my oncologist? Do I fire him, or do I say this is the way I want to go? I'm not sure how to do that.
So I would request that your doctor treat you, and it's an easy drug. You heard the name Firmagon. It's an injection. You get it once a month, and I would request that that's what I be given. And then you can be put on an oral medication along with it. You heard the name. It's abiraterone. So trade name is Zytiga,
Oh,
and you
Zytiga, yeah.
take that every day. And they will put you on prednisone. If you're on abiraterone, they'll put you on prednisone, 5 or 10, probably 10 milligrams a day. But you can ask for this, and that's what I'm on. So I'm not giving you advice. That is exactly what I take, and the side effects are very minimal.
Fred, we
Abiraterone.
don't want to overwhelm you with drug names and this and that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I am
you're
overwhelmed.
gun shy like we all are of a lot of these drugs initially, but you do want to read up on this stuff. We do have your email. There are some good books around, some good information. There's some you want to read up, because these therapies, these drugs, are not like anything else you've ever taken. They are designed to lower your testosterone, and a man without not low testosterone, but no testosterone, is not someplace you've been before. So you need to be a little bit prepared. Your family needs to be prepared for this. You just need to get some understanding on this thing, because you're in for a little bit of a ride, and where the treatments can be pretty darn powerful. So keep in touch with us. Stay with us. Rick has your email, right? So
Yes.
Yeah, let's we should talk some more. We won't keep going tonight with this, but keep in touch with us because
Okay.
this is a game changer, a life changer at this point for you.
Yeah.
What do
Okay.
you
And
guys think about what do you guys think about a consultation with a radiology oncologist?
Well, I mean, it's definitely part of what you may well need is some radiation, some spot radiation on your spine, and that may help. I think Dr. John, that's an excellent suggestion. But I think you've got to find your quarterback first, and you don't have a quarterback right now. One of the strange things at OHSU. And we've run across this with you because I remember you said to me you had trouble getting a referral in there. And we've also had this same issue around the palliative care is that OHSU depends on primary care physician referrals. You can't self-refer to OHSU, which is
that's
really
right.
unusual. At an NCCN hospital, especially one of that quality that you cannot self-refer, is very, very strange. But I think what we've got to do first of all is see if there's even a doctor at OHSU who would be right for you. And what you need is what you need to ask them is for a genitourinary medical oncologist, not a urologic oncologist, but a genitourinary medical oncologist, and then talk to us as soon as you can, and we'll tell you what we know. Like I say, the one guy you don't want to see is this guy Stone, based on our experience with him with a kidney cancer patient. And I should add, just so you're aware, kidney cancer is another cancer that a genitourinary medical oncologist would treat. So that's why. But I think that my first move is Dr. Jeff's suggestion of asking for Firmagon is a very good suggestion, and going without the bicalutamide, and then trying to find somebody who you can see to quarterback your care. And as Peter has suggested, if there is no one at OHSU, we could direct you to somebody either in Washington or somebody in San Francisco who would be willing to work with a local doc, like a Dr. Cosgrove, if he was willing to do that.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, Fred, we're going to move on because some other people, but keep listening. You'll learn a lot tonight. We're all in a similar situation. As I said earlier, you don't want to turn your back on this disease, and you're a classic example. Someone with a low-grade diagnosis of 3+3. All of a sudden, you've got a disease that you've got to pay close attention to now. So.
One question. If I want to communicate with somebody, if I want to communicate back with, AnCan on anything,
My email is Peter K, Peterk at AnCan.org. You've already have Rick's email, but just write to us. You can't impose on me, okay? Just write, and I'll give you some ideas of books to read about the drugs you're about to start taking.
Okay, Peter, thank you.
If I could add something too.
Go ahead, quick.
This session is recorded, and the
Yes.
chat
Yes.
also available on the archive. So, even if you don't get all the pertinent details down, you've got a place to reference everything you've heard here tonight.
And I've been doing that with past recordings. That's very helpful.
Very good.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
Great. Bob Snyder.
Yeah, I wanted to tell Rick that in Rochester, New York, at the U of R, I switched to that Dr. Van Veldhuizen. He told me there was somebody else that was using him, and they said they liked him real well, and you thought he was a good guy too. So I started with him in July. And,
Yeah, but I just heard that somebody told me that he's leaving.
Oh, haven't heard that. Huh.
Is there anyone else on here from that?
Yes, he's leaving at the end of the year, and they have two other practitioners in the practice that are GU medical oncologists that they'll be referring you to.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
I was with the Dr. Victor there before, and but they keep telling me I'm running out of options, and so I went on darolutamide for the second time, and that worked for me for, I don't know, about 4 months, and then now I'm on abiraterone for the second time, and see, the last time I was on abiraterone was way back in 2019. They thought it would work for me again, and it's been working pretty good. In May, my PSA went all the way back up to 63, and then in August, it's back down to 4.3. But
No.
it's starting to creep back up a little bit. It's at 6.6 now in September, and I go next week, and I might see that it's going back up again. They suggested possibly radium, but I was on radium before too, and I like that for taking away bone pain. I told them I don't have any bone pain right now. I'd rather wait till I start having some pain before I go on that. But the other thing is they said they think there might be a trial in Buffalo that I could get on, but I haven't found out what that is yet. But I go, next week I go again, and they'll talk to me some more about what they suggest.
When was the last time you did chemotherapy?
I had cabazitaxel in March of 2021. I had docetaxel before that, but I had a real bad reaction to the docetaxel. I just had one of those, and I ended up, my legs all swelled up, and I got a real bad rash, and I ended up in the hospital for 9 days.
So, how did you do on the cabazitaxel?
I did good with that. I mean, I didn't have any bad reaction to it. I thought maybe I could go on that again. My PSA, let's see, I started on it in March of 2021. My PSA was at 42, and it ended up going down to 8.9 in May, and then in June it started creeping back up again.
So let me ask you a question. When was the last time that you had somatic sequencing of your cancer, either from a solid tumor or blood?
You mean the DNA or what?
Yeah, the DNA. When was the last time they did that for you?
I don't think, I might not have had one since way back in 2015, maybe. I don't
Right.
think I had one in between.
So the first thing to do when you go in and see him on whenever it is on Thursday, is to tell him that you want somatic sequencing. You want your cancer sequenced. Don't ask them, can I have it? You tell them, I want my cancer sequenced. They shouldn't be talking to you, to be honest, about.
I did bring that up, and I think they were thinking about doing it again.
Well, they shouldn't be thinking. They need to do it. There's no thinking, and they cannot be talking to you about trials unless they know currently what mutations you might be carrying.
Okay.
So you can assert yourself there and say, it's the guidelines. I need to be sequenced. Can we get that done first, and then we can talk about treatment? If I was your doc, that would be my starting point. I would
Okay.
say, let's see where to go with this guy. Number one. Number two, a fallback position, if nothing shows from the sequencing, and you'll know that within about 2 to 3 weeks. It takes, I was just on if they do go with Foundation Medicine, it takes 7 or 8 days now to turn it around. So you'll know pretty quickly, so you'll want to make another appointment. But the fallback position might be to do some more cabazitaxel, especially if you tolerated it well.
Yeah, I asked them about that, and they said maybe they'll do that too. Yeah.
So that's where that's what I think I would start with. But I think the biggest thing is getting sequenced. Anyone else got any suggestions for Bob? Come on, we
I
got.
put the doctor's information in the chat window for you.
Oh, there you go. You got doctor's information of who to go to next. Yeah, stay away from Victor. She didn't do great for you, and you're not the first one. But
Okay.
how do you like? Have you met this fella, Brandon Guercio, Tony?
Yes, very, very personable. He was recommended too by a couple of other staff members I know there.
Excellent, excellent.
He's at the U of R?
Yes.
Okay.
How is biceps, Tony?
I haven't checked it out yet. I'll
Okay.
squeeze them and see if they feel like marshmallow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. By the way, when are you getting together with Ben?
Tomorrow at lunchtime.
Oh, nice, good, okay. Bring him regards from the group. Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And frankly, I might even say, can I see him right now for my next appointment? Ask for the sequencing, and then say, Dr. V, I know you're leaving. Can I make my next appointment with Dr. Guercio and to discuss what to do next? And then you bring him in earlier and tell him Tony Fig sent you.
Okay. All right. Well, Tony, what was Tony's name? Oh, Tony Fig. I see it.
Figueireda, but we call him Tony Fig.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Brandon Giarcio. Okay. Yeah, I'll call tomorrow and see if I can switch to him for the next appointment.
Bob, if you click on that link that's under his name, Brandon Guercio, it will open in another window, and you can see his smiling face, and you can read about him later.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Oh yeah.
It's good, this technology, when it works, isn't it?
Pretty neat. Yep. Thank you. Have you had many other people go on the same treatments over again?
Yeah, we have. Peter, you want to answer that one?
I'm not sure I can. Yeah, I've never done multiple chemos, but a number of people have done it. And as long as it works and drives your PSA down, then you can tolerate it. It's there. And did you say you've done 233, uranium 233?
Yeah. Yeah, I did that before. I had some bone pain, and I loved that. I didn't have any bad reaction to that. It took away all my bone pain, and I've, let's see, I've never taken any pain meds since.
But nobody's talked about Pluvicto at all.
I've had Pluvicto. I had 2
Oh, you've done it. Okay.
treatments of
Yeah.
that, but I had very little PSMA, so they only gave me 2 treatments, and they said they didn't think it would do any good for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, you've been through the mill. I get it.
Yeah, I've been on everything.
Sorry you got to go through the hassle.
And I was on Provenge too.
Yeah.
I did Provenge, and I don't know if that helped, but
You know, I think if you did it early enough, it probably is helping. You know, because you've been through so much, you're moving along, and probably you're one of these guys who really has gotten a benefit from Provenge. We never know as far as PSA is concerned, but we do know that men who take it do much better in terms of overall survival and progression-free survival. So I think it probably did help you, and you know, trying the same treatment again. But the reason we want to get you sequenced is there may be something in that result that points to a drug, like Peter's, you know, like Peter or Dr. Bob, or some of our other guys, or it may point to a particular trial for a mutation that you're showing.
Right. Yeah.
did you ever hear of anybody's changing so they could get Keytruda?
Well, that's what happened with me. Yeah, I qualified for Keytruda, and it
Well,
worked for me.
but the first time you were tested, were you able to get Keytruda then, or you changed?
Well, by the time I was ready for it, I was qualified for it. But I had 2 somatic tests. The first one showed my MSI was not high enough. It was stable. But the second time I went through testing, it had gone to high and qualified me for Keytruda, because Keytruda is not a drug, a go-to drug for prostate cancer, but it is a drug for the particular mutation and microsatellite instability and tumor burden that I have. So I qualified and it worked.
I know a guy that's had Keytruda, and last scan he got it. It showed that there wasn't any more cancer.
Yeah.
And his PSA was at 1,000 when he started.
It can be a remarkable drug if you fall in the sweet spot for it. It has some downsides too, but it can be effective sometimes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Peter Monaco, you had something.
Hello, how are you guys? I went to see my oncologist for my quarterly checkup on Friday. Everything's still going well. My PSA is undetectable. I've been on Eligard and abiraterone for about 30 months now. And as I discussed the last meeting I attended here, there was some discussion about when do you take a break? So I had that discussion with my oncologist, Dr. Patel, and he thought it would be okay if I wanted to. He wasn't that concerned if I stayed on a little longer before taking a break. It was kind of left up to me. He was not all that concerned about what happens if you fail on abiraterone and treating you after that event should happen. So I elected to stay on it for another quarter, and largely because I'm afraid to make that break. I'm doing okay as it relates to side effects. I'm managing them pretty well, and I feel okay. So I just wanted to bounce that off you.
Anybody have some thoughts with this?
I was kind of curious about the doc's response. So he was really on the fence about whether to take a break or not. It doesn't sound like he had really an opinion one way or the other.
You're right. He
Is
was rather neutral about it. It was kind of like, you can if you can do it if you wish to.
yeah.
He wasn't that concerned about um, if you fail on Zytiga, the treatment protocol thereafter. I asked him about that. He said there wasn't a lot of evidence about that, frankly, that you would have a problem um, if your secondary failed you. Um, and he said, if I wanted to take a break, I could. He would blood test me every 6 weeks rather than every 12 weeks.
Mm,
And he would take me off actually, what he suggested if we do anything was to stop the Eligard and
right.
stay on the Zytiga.
Uh-huh.
And, so I just said, hey, what if I decide to just, go with it another 3 months? He said, that's fine. We can do that. No problem. So,
This is after how long on the Eligard? What, a couple of
uh,
years
uh,
or something?
well, I've been on, I was on a single, mode of treatment. Eligard, or it was Lupron at the time, basically since 2019. And
Oh,
I was on that for about 15 months, and I went on. I took a break. I was with a different oncologist at the time, and after 3 months, I had a recurrence, and my scans showed some mets and bone mets and whatnot. So that's when I changed to Dr. Patel at Mount Sinai, and at that
mhm.
point, he put me on Eligard and Zytiga. So basically, I've been on a single mode of treatment since September of 2019. Um, and on a dual mode of treatment since, I guess it would be June of 2021. I think that would be. I'm 30
Mhm.
months 30 months in on the dual treatment.
I'm just always interested in what opinions the docs have about these breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't like all that keen about it. He was like, well, the evidence isn't that strong that'd be a problem treating you in another way if you should fail. Um, so it was sort of like you could
Yeah.
take a break if you want. If he did, he said we would cut the Eligard and keep you on the Zytiga.
Mm,
So,
It was
I would
surprising.
say this. I
Mm-hmm.
would say this. The um, the evidence isn't that strong um, because nobody's really looked at it.
mm,
And the problem is, and we can only say this anecdotally because we've seen it, that we've seen guys who have been on these drugs for 4 or 5 years, and then we cannot find something good of another treatment for them afterwards.
Right.
And if you pushed Patel, you could say to him, well, the guys who have become castrate resistant and you haven't been able to find another treatment for them, how many of them were on the same second line anti-androgen for a long period? I mean, that's
Right.
the question to ask him. I mean, what we've seen is too many. We've probably seen, and it's not a very big sample, but we've probably seen 4 or 5 guys who fit into that category. And so I think his suggestion to stop Eligard right now is what I would do and see how I did with that. And if I still did fine, and and if the abiraterone kept me low for 6 months or 8 months, I might think of coming off the abiraterone for a while and seeing. I mean, I think the one thing we can say safely is that it's non-inferior. The problem is that is based on, as far as I know, and we don't have Ben here today, and we don't have Len here today. Maybe one of the 3 docs on the call can answer this. We don't know if it's non-inferior when you add a second line anti-androgen, because I don't think they've ever done that trial. So in other words, if you start off on, say, Lupron and abiraterone, and then you take a holiday and then you go back on Lupron and abiraterone, we don't know if that's non-inferior. So a lot of this is just the feel. The docs we really like are very comfortable putting their patients on and off these drugs. And the reason they do it, and nobody ever says, nobody ever mentions this part, is because the quality of life is better.
Right.
Because when you're off these drugs, you feel better. And the docs who are pulling you on and off these drugs are the docs who are more sensitive to their patients' quality of life, and that's why we like them. So,
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents would be stop the Eligard. If it were me, I'd stop the Eligard and I'd try Abby alone. Guys, there's a bunch of you with a lot of experience here. What would you do?
I'd mess around and try different things like that. I've done it. I've gone off of first line drugs and off of second line drugs. I've mixed it all up. And sometimes my doctor, I don't wait for my doctors all the time to suggest to do it. I kind of talk to them about it and experiment. And right now I'm off of everything and I feel great. But
Wow.
I know that things are good, are not. There's no cure and things are going to go south. They're already going south. But eventually I'll start something else again and see how much time I can buy. But right now I feel good.
Ooh.
I know that Jim Marshall had spoken to
Yes.
you before, Jim, and you've taken a break after a long time on Zytiga, right?
Yes, anyway, I was on Zytiga for about 44 months. I stopped it, and then I stopped the Lupron essentially at the 48-month point, and I've been off of the 2 of them for now 14 months.
And still
Although,
okay? Still
oh,
okay?
yes, although within the case anyway, I'm a Gleason 734. So I don't know if that could play okay into your situation. So
Yeah, I'm a 4-4, so I'm in a different category, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, you're gonna have to mess around. There's no magic formula for this. You're gonna have to venture where no man has before. We've done this stuff, but you got to do a trial of one and not be afraid of it.
Well, for what it's worth, Dr. Patel told me that they are conducting trials on this subject of intermittent therapy when you're on uh, two forms of hormone therapy. And he said it'll be a while before they have some results, but they're trying to figure out what benefit is there and what the risks are, something like that for going intermittent when you're on 2 lines of therapy like I am.
Yeah.
So,
Two
Yeah, I
years
mean
ago, doctors
that's
wouldn't go near it. Now they're adventurous, many of
right.
them.
right,
That's exactly what I was saying. They don't have the evidence right now, but the better
right.
doctors are willing to work with you on and see what they can come up with. And I can't say to you if it were me, I'd do it because your levels of anxiety are not the same as my levels of anxiety, and I
Right.
know you have a lot more anxiety, Peter, than say I do.
Hmm.
But I just want to reassure you that we've seen other guys do it. As Peter said, and he's right on the money. He's played around and messed around with different things. And if nothing else, it keeps the cancer off guard.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and so staying on the abiraterone, Ken Anderson, God rest his soul, was on abiraterone monotherapy for a good while because he wanted to switch things around, and that was something he did, I think, for a long time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Something else anyway I want to add because I was a bit hesitant anyway to do it until I believe I don't know if it was you, Rick, or Len happened to happened to mention a paper about guys who were on long-term, I believe, AbbVie, getting the small cell neuroendocrine. And
Hmm.
so I talked to Len, and he happened to send me the paper. So I read that and went, "Oh, this is interesting." So that's how come I kind of went, "Well, maybe I should take a holiday." So I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
factor or not.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean I think you're right on. I can't even remember that paper, so thank you for. But I now you mention it, I reminded, and that's the paper you should be forwarding on to Dr. Patel. So maybe can you send that paper since you have it?
Right.
Can you send it to Peter Monaco, Peter M at ancan.org?
I sure can.
Peter M,
thank you.
not Peter K, but Peter K might like a copy too. Copy me, send it to Peter M at ancan.org, and Peter, we can discuss it next week. You can decide if you want to show it to Dr. Patel or not.
That's a good plan.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had, and I
Okay.
thank you
Okay.
for
Very
listening.
good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Good luck, Peter. Okay, Julian, you're up. Oh, sorry, you were at the beach there, yeah?
Yeah, I was at the beach. Went off to got a drink. Never mind. Just an update report. I had a bone scan, came out good. My PSA is in the dirt still, but my testosterone dropped. I mean, went down, went up. Was at 155, dropped to 127. But Dr. E is not concerned about any of that, so everything's looking good. But the only thing that's crept up on me is I've been diagnosed with A-fib. So I don't know where that's coming from, but it's under control right now. So we'll see where that's going. And Dr. E didn't know what to say or not say about that. That's it.
Well, I would say you might want to compare a few notes with Tony Fig.
Yeah, no, we were talking the other night, and I wanted to say something, but I didn't.
Well, say something to Tony Fig. Tony, aren't you going in for your procedure? Is it tomorrow or the next day?
Yeah, I'm going in tomorrow. I happen to be at the dentist today, and I noticed they have a defibrillator machine there. And the dentist's
Ah,
father used to be a cardiologist, so I thought I could talk him into doing that while he was working on me, but he wouldn't do it. But yes, I'm gonna have the electroshock treatment tomorrow, and if that doesn't work to get my AFib back in line, then I'll have
ablation.
ablation. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't heard about the shock, but that's interesting.
And Julian, have you had the ablation?
No, this is brand new to me.
Okay. Well, I think we've got a few guys. Anyone else on the call that's had to deal with AFib that
No,
we could have
I have.
offline discussions? Send Tony and Julian over. Any other AFib merchants?
Yeah,
There's
it's
yeah,
Jack.
Jim B. Jim
Jack,
B. I knew there was someone.
I've had
Stride
it.
in,
Jack,
Jim B.
I've had it. So you
Jack.
can. I've had an ablation 10 years
Oh, you
ago, and
did?
they
Ah,
tried to re-ablate me this year, and they found out my pulmonary veins were isolated, and there was electrical activity going on throughout the heart, but they couldn't ablate it because. So they
ah.
found that it wasn't AFib; it was just a lot of electrical activity simulating AFib.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm taking a medication now for the premature beats, the extrasystoles, the tachycardias all over the place. I've had a monitor, so I don't know if I'm going to go back into AFib or I'm just going to have just a heart that's just flubbing all over the place. And if it's going to morph into something else, I'm not sure. I may see another electrophysiologist in New York who did the original one. But
Ah.
yes, I've had AFib. If you want to talk to me about any part of it, I'll be more than happy. If you
Thank you.
just
Yeah, because I'm taking Motac for that.
oh, I took that. That's yeah.
Julian, you
Well,
have a good
let
question?
me tell you about Multac. If you're taking if you're taking primary androgen deprivation therapy, if you're taking Lupron or Relugolix or any of those, it's really a little risky because it can prolong your something called the QTC, the interval, and it puts you at risk. And watch closely. And it gets a little iffy when it gets up to about 400, 480. Mine's now at 443. But if it gets up 480, 500 gets really spooky. And so you got to monitor your heart very closely if you're going to take Multec.
I'm not on any cancer medication at all.
Oh, okay.
I've
Then
been off for
Multec.
about a year.
Then Multec's a go.
Yeah. Thank you.
You have a good cardiologist, Julian?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I had to tell
make
my,
sure.
I think I fired my first cardiologist because he couldn't figure it out. And I said, I showed him on my iPhone, look, oh, you need this and you need this. I said, then I went back to a Houston Methodist. So he's the one that recommended.
Ask Dr. E if she could recommend a good person for you. You want a good doctor to keep an eye on this.
Yeah.
And they might want to put you on a heart monitor for a week or two just to see where you are. Oh, you got one. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't mean to flash y'all.
Julian, ask Dr. E if she knows a good cardio-oncologist, because there are more and more of them, and she may have somebody that she likes. We've got a couple of people we like, but they're not in the Houston area. But ask her for a cardio-onc. I mean, we've all, not all, but a lot of the guys have Dr. Jack and Dr. John and what have you. Jim B., tell us about your experience.
Yeah, about 5 years ago. I mean, I always knew I had A-fib, but about 5 years ago, it turned into an incident that evolved into cardiomyopathy or congestive heart failure with the A-fib. So I ended up going into the hospital, just about died going into the hospital. I spent 60 days the first time in the hospital, and then went into intensive care for 30 of those 60 days. And ended up going back to the hospital a couple months later after I had a stroke, and that's when they put tried the drugs to get my heart into rhythm, tried to get the cardioversion, shocking in the front and the back. Then I had a stroke, so they forewent the ablation and went straight to a pacemaker. So I have a pacemaker slash defibrillator installed, which is awesome. Every time I look at my heart rate, man, it's like smooth 75. I never have to worry about it at all. Nice. So it's been, I hated the idea of getting a pacemaker at first, but now I love it because I always look at my heart rate and it's perfect all the time. Because it's spooky when your heart starts getting out of rhythm, right?
Oh yeah.
So I quite a bit of it. That's a very short story, and within that time frame, my heart also stopped for 10 minutes, and they paddled me back to life, which was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Good for you guys. Yeah. I mean, this is the #1 killer, so good for you guys for taking care of this stuff.
I have a pacemaker also, and never really had any A-fib since I had that installed. But when I started on Firmagon, I started getting A-fib maybe for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then it seemed to kick in when I had hip surgery, and it's been nonstop since the 1st of September. But I don't know if the Firmagon contributed to it getting into that situation.
Okay. Jack, since you've already spoken up, go ahead. You've got something. Oh, do you want to say something?
Well, Rick.
Who did I miss? Who did I miss before? Jeff Marchi, you had something. Go ahead.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I after being on abiraterone for 2.5 years, I had 4 AFib events. I had not had one since 06. I had one in 04 and one in 06, and then I hadn't had any until 21 when I was on Abby. The third time, or the last time I got it, I was in the hospital for 4 days, and it was caused by taking azithromycin, which causes electrical changes in the heart. and has I think it's at least a 3 or 4 day half-life. So they tried to cardiovert me, and it didn't work. They did it twice the first day, so they figured they'll do it in 4 days. But one drug they gave me that stopped it, and which a friend of ours is a cardiologist, and he's retired, and he takes this drug to stop from having it. It's metoprolol, and they had given me a couple of other drugs, and they gave me that one the third day, and within 2 hours, but the AFib stopped. So that's a drug to look into. Metoprolol. And like I said, this cardiologist friend of ours uses it to prevent himself from having AFib. The reason I got it was because of abiraterone, and the last AFib event, I was taken off it, and now I'm on darolutamide, and my blood pressure is much slower. Another drug is Cardiovol, and that's one that they gave me. I was taking 3 of those twice a day because I've had a lot of skip beats, and that tends to lead into AFib, and that stopped them almost completely. That's Coreg, C-O-R-E-G, but it's also Cardiovol. I'm not exactly sure of the spelling, C-O-R-D-I. I'm not sure exactly. But those are the 2 drugs that have been used by my doctors to stop me from having AFib. And the Cardiovol obviously didn't stop it because I took an antibiotic, azithromycin, which if you have any chance of AFib, you can't take that drug. It's the FDA specifically says it causes electrical problems in the heart. And my QTC went way up. So there's just some other feedback.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm about ready to leave and go back to Maui, but we have an apartment here in Minneapolis, which is walking distance from Earl Bakken's home and now the Bakken Museum. He's founder of Medtronics. So this is the home of the pacemaker up here. It's a big deal. Okay, Jack, go ahead.
All right. Well, I wanted to follow up on last week when I talked about sarcopenia and what happens with this medication and how do we reverse it. And I did a 3-hour podcast, and I told Rick about it. And he said, give it a 5-minute summary. I want to do that because I think it's useful. Sarcopenia, as we all know, is going to occur when our testosterone goes down as low as it has. I've never been so weak in my life, and I wanted to find a way to reverse it. And I found that just doing, resistance training by itself isn't going to really do the trick, because what happens to us is that not only aging but also with this medication, the signals in the muscle itself no longer respond as they have in the past, and it has to do. It's more a function of visceral fat, and the amount of visceral fat that we've accumulated over the years based upon how we've been living our life. And, we find out how much visceral fat we have by doing an MRI, and we'd be very shocked and surprised that we may have much more than we ever thought we had. Now, as far as our muscles are concerned, our muscles can look like, filet mignon, which is what they used to look like when we were young, and maybe some of us still, Tony Fig when he was doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. But right now, for many of us, we may be surprised that it looks more like a marbled cut of porterhouse steak. And so what we have to do to reverse that, there's a bunch of solutions, and some of them are very common sense, and such as changing the way we eat and eliminating processed food, which is hard to do these days because we all are in a hurry to want to eat an Impossible Burger, something that appears to be healthy, but it's really not. And eliminate booze completely if you can, or certainly cut back on it. Do high interval training is a must, which I've been doing lately, back to doing sprinting on the bike and Used to be fartlek sprinting when I ran. I don't do it anymore. My knees are too shut. But long distance running does nothing for sarcopenia. It just increases sarcopenia. You look at every Kenyan running, and all of them have, really sarcopenia. They have different twitch fibers. They have slow twitch fibers, and we want to get the fast twitch fibers activated. So in addition to sprinting, we got to find ways of getting good quality sleep, eliminate stress, because cortisol and really has an impact on sarcopenia. By the way, exercising too much is really bad for us and will cause even more sarcopenia, which has been shown up with long distance runners. And there are some people who are actually thin on the outside and fat on the inside, and they have the illusion of having no visceral fat, and they're called toffies. Thin on the outside, fat on the inside, and that has to do with the fact they haven't been living according to all of these rules that make a difference. And there are other people who are called FOTI, F-O-T-I, which is fat on the outside and thin on the inside. And these are people who've been living right, and for whatever reason, they just have accumulated too much fat on the outside, subcutaneous fat. And you want to have a little bit of that because that's kind of healthy, and it protects you from cardiovascular disease because it has a substance in it called adiponectin. And sauna, by the way, is another way to eliminate visceral fat, and I've been back to doing that, which is very relaxing, but can be exhausting. And another way to do it is to improve your microbiome. So the more visceral fat you can eliminate, the more you can truly reverse sarcopenia and get more of a filet mignon muscle configuration than another kind of a marble cut steak. The thing interesting about sprinting and doing that is it actually produces a molecule called LACT-FE, L-A-C-T-F-H-E, which is a combination of lactose and alanine, and then it helps grow fast twitch fibers, which is a key to fragility and preventing fragility, falling, and sarcopenia. But that, resistance training is still good, and taking in daily protein as much as a milligram per pound of weight, 150 for a 150-pound person, involves the most important meal in the morning, getting as much protein in you as possible, whey protein, whatever you can do to really build up that protein. Now, the only question I had about this whole thing has to do with the fact that it increases blood. Get rid of visceral fat, and it increases the circulation of blood throughout your system. And I froze. I just noticed my picture. And I just wonder if that could be detrimental to people who have cancer. And but it sounds like it's such a healthy thing to do, and it seems counterintuitive not to do something as healthy as this, to be afraid that it would, increase the chances of metastasis or further spread of disease based upon, excessive amount of blood perfusion throughout your body, and maybe it'll cause more angiogenesis or maybe more perfusion into the tumor itself. Something maybe other doctors can help me out with. It's just like the same thing with mTOR. mTOR is very healthy, for longevity and health span, but then again, I don't know if it's too good for people who have cancer.
Jack, we got to keep moving. It says great synopsis.
I'm finished.
Okay. Anybody have a quick comment? It's a great synopsis of what we can do, what we can all do. A lot of good points in there.
Thank you. I just thought everybody would find that useful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we were all listening, we probably already made pledges to change already. I have.
I would just defer to either Dr. John or Dr. Jeff. Anything either of you would like to say?
Well, thanks,
I have
Jack.
a question on oxygenation of your blood. Does that have play a big factor in when you're doing your training and to get rid of the fat, the unhealthy fat?
Well, I don't know if it's the oxygenation per se, but it seems like that's going to happen if you do sprinting excessive or any kind of training. You're going to get more oxygen in your blood. But it talks about the LACT-FE, more as that lactose phenylalanine combination that really melts away the visceral fat and reverses the sarcopenia. So I don't know to what degree oxygenation itself does, but you know, I wonder about oxygenation for tumor growth also. You know, is that good? Is that bad? You know, does it grow? Does cancer grow better in anaerobic or aerobic, you know, areas? You know, hyperbaric chambers, for example. Is it good or is it bad for cancer? Anybody else? Dr.
No,
I
Joe?
would say,
we got to keep.
yeah, I would suggest speaking to a nutritionist, and developing, as you said, Jack, dietary changes and good eating habits. And nutritionists are good ones, are very knowledgeable about what foods they can put together. This you should eat for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. It becomes pretty routine to get it down. I spoke to one and have a little eating routine now, which I think I'm feeling better. And I did mention that I don't get the sweats anymore. I don't get the hot flashes since it was suggested to me to add tofu to my diet, which I've done. It's a great source of protein, a great source of calcium, and most of us need calcium, and we all need protein.
Good suggestion. I think on our website we still have the UCSF dietitian thing from Greta from UCSF about prostate cancer and diet. It's a classic and very well informed. Okay, we have a whole bunch of people we got to keep going with here. I don't want to miss anybody. So Les Sheldrup, still there? Go ahead. We haven't heard you from a while.
Yeah, I think I'll pass for tonight. I've got a few questions, but I think I got to better get them better organized first. So I'll pass for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff with a G.
Hi. Yeah, just a quick update here. We did a couple of appeals to try to get the darolutamide, but it was not approved. It was turned by Medicare, Cigna, and so the current plan is, well, okay, so tomorrow I'm going in for the simulation of the spot radiation treatments, and then Friday I'll be starting on the Orgovyx oral, and we'll see how that goes for a month or so, and then maybe add in abiraterone. So that's the current game plan. And Dr. Iwal didn't think it was worth trying a third attempt to appeal the denied.
Okay. Well, what you're doing is sounds good, and you can come back around again and in time. Things change.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Jeff, let me just clarify. So you're going to start on Orgovyx. You haven't started yet. You're going to start on Orgovyx.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you're just going to see how you feel on that, and then maybe think about adding a second line anti-androgen pretty soon after that, right?
Yes. Yes. See how the PSA looks. Yeah. So.
And I'm just putting in the link for you for the 3-hour link that Dr. Jack listened to. I've just been sorry,
Okay.
I was looking for it.
Good.
And
good.
And I'll put it in, and you can listen to that. You can listen to it and tell us if Dr. Jack missed anything.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. I was going to do that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
There we go. I think it should be there. It's an awful long link, but it's the only way I can do it. If you click on it, it should come up. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Herb Courtney.
Okay, I just wanted to throw something out to the group to see if it sounded right. Background, a 57-year-old son of a very good friend of mine just recently got diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Well,
And I know
time
very,
out, time out, time out, time out, time
yeah,
out.
okay,
We as a policy, we don't talk about other people. We're
oh,
happy
okay,
to answer a question for you, and
okay,
if the guy would like to come on, we're happy to have him come on. But if
yeah,
we open
okay,
that can of worms about, oh, my friend's got this, what would you do? So just as a policy, we try not to go there. We try not to go there. But you're the 57-year-old guy. We'd love to talk to him, and we'd love to help him.
yeah, okay, no problem, that's fine.
Is that it? Okay. Steve R.
Hello, good evening. I had an insurance question, if I may ask. By the way, I was on in May of 2023, if you remember. Probably not. Um, but I was diagnosed in 2008, and by 2009, I had hormone sensitive metastatic prostate cancer. And over the years, I've had various treatments. In 2019, I had a Garden 360 somatic test, liquid biopsy, and it came back with 3 mutations: ATM, ARID1A, and SMO. And then in 2022, I had an endoscopic biopsy of the duodenal wall, and they concluded it was Gleason 4+5 prostate cancer. And I thought that was a great opportunity to get some somatic tissue sampling. And I thought it would be a no-brainer for my private insurance company to approve it. The doctor said yes. We have a letter from the doctor. I sought pre-approval from the insurance company to get coverage, and they denied it. And I went on appeal, and they denied the appeal. I went to a second appeal, and they denied the second appeal. And now I'm on a third appeal. And the reason that they're denying it is because I have previously had genomic sequencing, and there's no medical evidence to show that additional testing improves clinical outcomes. And I was wondering if any of you on the group here have had experience with a private insurance company getting approval for somatic tissue testing, which I feel is much better than a liquid biopsy, even if you've had a liquid biopsy in the past. And obviously, liquid biopsy now is 4 years old, so I would think, well, that's a little old anyway. Why not get a new one? But the insurance company is really fighting me on this, and I was curious if
So
anyone's had that
so
experience.
there's a couple of issues here. Are you this is private and not Medicare, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. As far as I can tell you what Medicare does, if it helps you in fighting the private insurance company, because this was always this was a big issue from us from the very first approval of somatic testing by Medicare. Originally, Medicare approved it once in a lifetime. However, we went in pretty quickly, a bunch of advocates along with Foundation Medicine and others, and we petitioned CMS, and they relaxed that, and they said that it was as required by your doctor if there was a significant change in medical condition. So you can get now on Medicare, you can get tested pretty much as often as you want. Probably, I mean, if somebody was in an advanced stage and changing very quickly, maybe every 3 or 4 months, although we don't see that. We've seen twice a year. Also, they will approve a solid tumor test and a liquid test. What is it that you were talking about? Fission? What is it? What was it that what sort of test are you looking for?
A tissue test. Well,
Tissue test.
on the tumor
Okay,
sample. I didn't want to
tissue.
waste it.
I didn't hear tissue from the tumor sample. Absolutely, and the way to get that and to go back to your insurance company, or who's your medical oncologist?
Dr. Singhal in Miami.
Okay, is he around right now, or is he in India?
Oh, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so you might want to think about going to Belusich.
Well, but
Okay.
I have a letter from Singhal that I put in the file, and he's recommended that I get the testing. So
Yeah, but he's not there, and he can't force them. And when they call him, he's not there to argue for you. This is the problem with Singhal. If he was there all the time, and the insurance company calls him up, but what happens is the insurance company calls up to schedule a meeting and to talk to him. He's not there, so they deny you. So this is why we're moving people over to Belusich. Ask Dr. Jack. Now, Belusich can say that he wants to know your tumor fraction, and you can't measure your tumor fraction from. You have to do that on a solid tissue. There's tumor burden and tumor fraction. So they're two different. I understand tumor burden. I don't understand tumor fraction that well, but I do know you can only get the tumor fraction off of a solid tissue. So, is your insurer? Who's your insurer? Major company? Blue Cross Blue Shield.
No, I don't want to mention it in public, but it's a major company.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it would help if you did, because then if there are other guys who have that company, they'd be willing to talk to you. That's why we have this forum. There's no reason not to mention them, but I would say somebody isn't serving you right. It should be no problem to get a solid tissue sample. Do you have recent solid tissue? You mentioned this duodenal. How long ago was that?
That was July of 2022.
Fine. So and the other thing is, call. You could call one of the companies yourself. Explain the situation. If you've got a doctor who's willing to order the solid tissue for you, say a foundation, a foundation 1 test, and then call them up and say, look, this is what I'm going through. My insurance company's giving me a hard time about a solid test, and and Foundation Medicine will work with you. Just call up their client line. They are amazing. So there's a bunch of good suggestions. It is unusual, shouldn't be happening, and wouldn't happen if you had if you've got a GU med onc who's on the ball.
All right. Thank you for that advice.
And if you've got known genetic mutations, you really need to stay on top of it, because things can and do change, and it can particularly guide your treatment.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm very surprised that the insurance company is denying it. It seems to me to be pretty standard of care at this point, especially with the NCCN guidelines, where they say that it's preferred to be tissue sampling as opposed to liquid biopsy.
Right. Yeah. How long ago was your blood test? The liquid test?
2019.
Oh, absolutely. It's a slam dunk. You have to have another one, and so you could get another liquid test right now.
I don't want to waste the tissue sample. I think that's a much better result by testing the tissue.
Good idea.
All right. I will carry on. Thank you.
Okay. Matt Krieger. You still with us?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks. I just shared.
You put all your information in the chat window. So.
Yeah. I was going to see the doctor tomorrow, so I just wanted to share that and see if anybody had any thoughts of looking at that. And I shared that I had blood in my urine for the first time in 4 years, just sort of out of the blue, which is kind of weird. It's just just been through a little bit of up and down with the PSA and some odd things happening, and I'm thinking maybe my body is finally reacting to some of the radiation that I had years ago, because I didn't really have much of a reaction. I just wonder if that's going on. Just wondering if anybody has any experience to share in this type of thing.
How long ago was your radiation?
It was 3.5 years now,
Okay.
and
It's possible.
I've been off of my anti-androgen drugs for just what a year and a bit now, and so everything was very consistent and up until this summer, and things just kind of started going a little bit haywire. But I don't think anything terribly bad, particularly with the PSA kind of coming back down, which surprised me, quite frankly. But
Yeah, it's jumping around.
yeah.
So besides the blood, do you have any other urinary symptoms? Is it, are you retaining urine?
I've had pain. Yeah, pain for several months, and I've talked to the urologist, and he's given me some supplements and advice and stuff like that. It's I have to manage pain with that pretty consistently, stay hydrated, and but I hadn't had blood until recently. So.
Oh, this is Alan. Let me ask you, Matt, when you have blood, do you get any clots, or is it just a tint of a little red or pink in the urine?
Yeah, good question. No clots, and the odd thing, well, I don't know if it's odd or not, but it was just a one-time thing with the blood, a couple drops and tint, and then it appeared to resolve. But it's only happened once since my biopsy and brachy days.
Right,
it just
right.
kind of came out of
So
nowhere.
I'll just say, I mean, I feel like the living, I guess the poster child. You might have a little bit of radiation cystitis. I was surprised. I had got mine, and mine was bad. I had clots with total urinary blockage 6 years after my radiation.
Wow.
And what I've read is when you get this issue within a year or two, maybe 3, it's sort of transient. You have it for a while, and eventually it's self-limiting, and it clears up. When you have it sort of in a latent way, like I did a lot of years afterward, then it progresses to something really bad, which is what happened to me. And I had 5 hospitalizations. Fortunately, the hyperbaric oxygen treatment, which hopefully you'll never need, 2 complete rounds of that, 20 sessions and 50 sessions at the beginning of this year, has resolved at least the bleeding. I still have other complications, but at least the bleeding has stopped. And so I would just say to you, you're going to keep an eye out for it. I didn't have pain. I had more urinary frequency. Overactive bladder leading up to this was the only, and no bleeding at all, except one day I couldn't urinate. And so hopefully yours won't get worse. There is supplements that my doctor recommended, my urologist. D-mannose was one. Another one was hyaluronic acid. There's another capsule to take. And the third one is the collagen peptides that he buys a big jug of powder, and he told me to take 10 grams a day of that. And I've been doing that. I can't say it's helped, but it certainly hasn't hurt.
Yeah.
He did mention one other thing, but I would caution against using it, and that was the stuff you take for joint replacement, arthritis, glucosamine and chondroitin. And I searched all of these things to see if there was any sort of, I don't want to say clinical study, but any sort of evidence. And there's a little bit, but the hyaluronic, the glucosamine and chondroitin is actually a write-up, at least as of earlier this year, on the Mount Sinai website, and they caution against it because they said one of those, and I'm not sure which one, might stimulate prostate cancer. So I told my doctor that I'm not taking it. So
Matt, where do you live? Matt, where do you live?
Denver.
Denver. And do you have a good urologist? Is it Individual or practice?
It's Kaiser.
Kaiser.
Kaiser urologist, and I've been quite happy with him and my radiation oncologist. So far so good in my eyes.
Oh, Matt, let me give you a very quick summary of my experience with Kaiser and the same thing. Okay. I first got blood in my urine I think about 2 to 3 years after my radiation. It was very bright. It didn't bother me a lot because I'd had kidney stones. I'd gotten blood in my urine when I'd exercised too hard, when done hard track work. And so it didn't really bother me much at all. But I didn't have pain. And I really liked my urologist, and I told him about it, and it happened about 2 or 3 times. And then he made me promise that if it happened one more time, I would tell him and we'd do a cystoscopy. Okay. And that was because I didn't want to do the cystoscopy. And he said, okay, I'll give you one more chance. But if it happens again, you've got to come in and do it. And I said, okay, Joe. And that's what he did. And it turned out it was radiation cystitis. He could see where the inflammation was. It is not, as Alan said, it's not at all atypical for it to occur 3 to 4 years afterwards, 2, 3, 4 years after your radiation. So don't worry about it. Can't say the same about the pain. You'll have to talk to the urologist about that. But I can tell you the cystoscopy was a nothing. Sounds awful, but you don't even notice it. It's easy, and it puts your mind at rest that you don't have any issues with your bladder or anything else. So my guess is that your uro is going to say, come in and we'll do a cystoscopy, and they'll see what it is. But try and work on something for the pain. That's another ball game.
Yeah, I think I might be in for that procedure tomorrow. I think that just might happen, and I won't mind if it happens. So thank you. I appreciate both of your comments here.
They'll shoot up some local anesthetic, and I think there's a bunch of guys in here who have been through cystoscopies, and they sound a heck of a lot worse than they are.
Well, I mean, as I told the guy.
Oh,
lost you.
We'll never know what he told the guy.
You might. At least so much.
I would say if they don't do a cystoscopy tomorrow, they're doing a tremendous disservice to him.
Of course.
You're right, Jeff. Unless his stock's like mine, where he can negotiate a little bit, but he might be at the end of his negotiating rope. That's also possible. But you're right. I agree with you.
Yeah, my philosophy. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
You always want to rule out bladder malignancies,
right.
And to just kind of pass it off and say it's from exercise, you ran too much, you walked too hard, things like that, or it's from a stone. Take a look at the bladder, and if it looks good, then your mind goes to rest.
Yeah. I'm of the philosophy, and I might be the only one who thinks like this, is if I have an opportunity to get a test done, that's covered by, in my case, Medicare or way back up by insurance, and it's not really much of a risk, I welcome that opportunity because you never know what can be found. And so, hey, why not do the test? You're not going to die from it. You're not going to, you know what I mean? And so why not? It's painless, and as you said, Jeff.
Right, but it's not just the camera, and it's not just the test. It's the doctor. I had a cystoscopy years ago, just before my prostate surgery, and I had a second-rate urologist at UCSF, a great institution, where I had my surgery, and this guy told me, "Oh, you've got bladder cancer. That's your problem." And that was not my problem. So even at great institutions, if you go to a second-rate doctor, you can get second-rate information. So you want to make sure that you get second opinions and really get good information from these people, because
Well,
They might be poking around with a camera, but they're guessing.
how did he diagnose you with bladder cancer without a biopsy?
I don't know, but he scared the shit out of me.
I don't know.
Matt, you're back. Anything
Did
else you
you
want to say,
ever, Peter Kafka, did you ever mention that experience to Peter Carroll?
I don't know whether I did or not. I
He
don't
would
know
have
if I did.
he would have been after that guy he would have been down on that guy like a ton of bricks. Matt, to summarize, Dr. Jeff says he can't imagine that they would not do a cystoscopy tomorrow because they've got to rule out a whole bunch of things. So, if you can't negotiate anymore, just go with it and you'll be fine. It's a nothing. Don't be intimidated and come back next week and tell us how you do and we'll go on.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the information, particularly knowing that this stuff can happen some years after radiation. I just don't know enough people to have heard that before, and I appreciate that. I'm sorry for the tough experience the first gentleman had, and I'm glad that you found some relief. That sounds really tough. So thank you, and I probably will get the testimony. I have nothing against it. Why not? As I've told people, I've had so many things poked in my body with high dose rate brachytherapy and all that, whatever. I'm not sure how much worse the probing can get after that, but I shouldn't ask that question because it's probably something worse.
Right.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Matt, have you had a cystoscopy previously?
No, I haven't. No.
It's literally nothing. They squirt some lidocaine into your urethra, put the tube in, look around, and it's done. I mean, it's nowhere near any of the intrusive biopsy kind of stuff. It's really minor.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not worried about it. 17 needles, into my prostate was something different. This is not that. Yeah, so I'm no problem. I appreciate this. Thank you.
No.
Good going. Radiation docs probably will not give you. They don't like to talk about this stuff. They've done their job. They don't like to talk about the fact that maybe there's side effects years later.
Peter, we've got about 10 minutes max. We've still got Alan C. and Steve R. Steve R., I sent you a note. If you could reply to it, I'd appreciate it. It's in the chat window.
Alan C.
Yeah, I have a question.
Orgovyx.
Yes, been on Orgovyx going on 6 months, ending this October, per Dan Geinesman, who wants me to stop. Other practitioners disagree. They say that I should continue it. Some say indefinitely, some say 18 months. What is the current thinking of the panel?
What's your Gleason score?
What other people experienced in terms of Orgovyx?
What kind of cancer do you have? What grade and what have you done?
Okay, just to summarize, I was diagnosed in June of 18 with Gleason 4+5. I underwent Firmagon, EBRT, which ended in March of 2019. The PSA continued to drop until it hit nadir November of 2019. Since then, there's been a steady rise. In July of 2022, with the PSA at 1, I underwent the PYLARIFY PSMA, which showed uptake in both lobes corresponding to the original tumors. The original tumors were contained in the prostate. There was no evidence of any other metastasis at the time of treatment. And then the PSA continued to rise. I had another PSMA on February of this year, which showed progression, and the PSA rose to 3.3 when I started Orgovyx. It has since dropped down to 0.05 with a testosterone of only 2. Now, one of the other practitioners tends to agree with Geinesman, but his twist is that you do Orgovyx until you get 3 consecutive monthly non-detectables, and then he would do another, PYLARIFY, possibly a prostate MRI to verify there is no cancer, and that person can take a holiday.
Well, if you've
What are
got
some of the
non-detectable, nothing's going to show up on a PYLARIFY scan.
No, not necessarily, Peter. Not necessarily, because there are tumors there, and we're checking to see if the tumors have gone. So they're looking for the tumors that showed up. I mean, this is a strange case. This is a very strange case because you had 45 sessions of EBRT, but you still had tumors in your gland. Isn't that right?
Yes, the recurrence it showed up a couple of years later, pretty much in the same. Excuse me.
In the gland, in the
Yes, in the
prostate
gland, right? No evidence of metastasis anywhere else, in the gland.
Right. So this is weird. And in February of this year, when you did another PSMA, what did it show?
It showed progression. It showed the original tumors, but they have progressed significantly.
In the gland.
In the gland. Again, in the gland. No evidence of.
So then he says to you, okay, let's see if we can knock them off with 6 months of Firmagon, right? 6 months
Orgovyx oral. 6 months of oral.
Okay. Right. You know, you're probably the first guy that we've ever known that not only did it come back in the gland after 45 sessions of IMRT, but it persists in the gland after 45 sessions of IMRT. And so can we say what to do? Not really. I mean, somehow or other, they got to get rid of what's going on in the gland. And how can you do that right now? You could do cryotherapy. That might be a really good option, because whatever you're doing doesn't seem to be killing it off. How about doing another PSMA scan and seeing if it's still in the gland?
Well, that was my thought. After the 6 months, to ask Dynasman for another PSMA to see what's going on, and possibly another prostate MRI, in case it's the cancer is not PSMA avid.
Yeah, an MRI could tell you something.
Because the MRI can see the tumors that are not PSMA avid that the scan won't see.
Right. I mean, I think that first of all, thank God it's not outside the gland. So that's the good news. And as Peter says, it's probably not going to show up if it's outside the gland anyway, because your PSA isn't high enough. But where we know it's in the gland, and that's really what we're looking for, and we're looking to see if we got rid of it in the gland, and that would be helpful. And if it is still there, I would be talking to the doc about doing some sort of local interventional treatment. Maybe not a salvage prostatectomy, but maybe some other type of cryotherapy, or I don't know what. Cryo is what comes to my mind, because we've got to get rid of whatever's going on in the gland. I think the other thing I would do is I will probably biopsy them and see what I can learn from a sequencing of them, or from looking at them and seeing what they are. I mean, God forbid they're neuroendocrine, then you're a really lucky guy because you got an early call, but you need to know if that's why they're not responding.
So what about continuing the Orgovyx, like some of the other practitioners have said? Continue it indefinitely.
Well, the thing is, you need a scan. We don't know if it's good or bad. We got to see what it's done.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe another PYLARIFY scan, and possibly another prostate MRI. Some of the other patients.
I go back to Gainesman. I go back to Gainesman, and I'd say, Dr. Gainesman, can we see what's still there? Is it working? Happy to stop, but can we see if it's still there? And he may just say, well,
I was hoping some of his other patients were on the call tonight, but it looks like they're not. Joe Gallo and a few other people.
Well, he's a great doctor. You got a good doctor there. My God.
But it doesn't. In a way, it doesn't really matter if his other doctors, because you've got such an unusual situation, Alan. Yeah, Alan Babcock's not here today, and I can't, and Joe's not here today. So, but you can reach out to them. But I think I'd go back to Gainesman and say, I need some scans. We need to see if this is successful. Anybody else have? Who else has an opinion on this?
So are you saying, Alan, that 44 sessions of radiation and it did nothing? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, because the scans I did in 2022, we did MRIs first. They couldn't see anything. So apparently the tumor was too small. But by the time we got to July of 2022, because the PSA was rising from non-detectable to 1 to 1.0, and at that time it did show uptake in both sides of the lobe in the PSMA. By February of this year, with the PSA at 2.2, it showed that it had significantly progressed. So when we did the earlier prostate MRI, I believe it was in 21, it didn't show anything. Because when the PSA was rising, I asked for a scan. And at that time, the PSMA wasn't available. So it could have been there, but it was too small to see, because I understand the limits of the test is 5 millimeters or more before it shows up. So anything below 5 millimeters, it won't pick up.
Anybody else have any comments or thoughts?
Is it just impossible for surgery after all he's been through with the radiation? Is it just impossible?
They've ruled
Well,
it out. They're saying nobody wants to do salvage surgery.
Yeah, I mean it's a very difficult procedure. It can be done. You know, there are a lot of very skillful guys. They do it more than they ever used to, but it's not an easy procedure. And the fact is that we've got other types of treatment today that can treat the gland, and without the surgery, like high intensity frequency ultrasound, HIFU, or cryotherapy. I mean, there are other treatments, but you know, this is somebody who is not metastatic, but they're not. It's not local either. It's just a very, very resistant, and that's why I would say, as unpleasant as it might be, I would want to get a biopsy and see what the heck is this thing there, and, you know, if it's still there. And so how do we know if it's still there? Well, it might show up on a PSMA scan. It's shown up on a PSMA scan before.
Yeah. Or
and
even
it
the
might show up on an MRI.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to add is we did talk about cryotherapy, but the problem is I ruled it out because of the urinary incontinence issue with cryo. They said it's as high as 60%. And the other option they offer was salvage brachy, but again, you have the high probability of the urinary issues.
Yeah, but you know, again, that's why we got to know what the heck it is. Otherwise, if it's not going anywhere and you can maintain it, you're you know, go with the on and off Orgovyx every, you know, like he's saying, you go off, if it comes back, you go on again and control it that way. But you got to find out what the heck it is. I know if it were me, Dr. Jeff, what would you do? You got the medical degree, not me.
I would do exactly what you're suggesting. And if this was me next year, I ask for another biopsy.
Yeah.
Next year, you ask for a biopsy.
No. If it was me next year, you need one now. But your story is kind of similar to me.
Well, wouldn't we want to do a scan to see if anything's there first before we do a biopsy? Because if there's nothing there,
well, you can have an MRI first, and you know they can do the fusion biopsy for you using the result of your MRI.
Right, but that only works if they find something, because the previous prostate MRI didn't see anything until the PSA rose, you know, later.
So how long ago was that MRI?
The last MRI was in March, right after the PSMA, and it did show the tumor. The prior MRI was last July. It didn't show anything, even though the
Yeah, but if your
PSMA showed.
last MRI shows tumor, they should be able to biopsy you. They should be able to see it, direct the biopsy, and hit your tumor.
Right, but now I've been on Orgovyx for 6 months, so theoretically the tumor should have shrunk. Theoretically, it may
So
be
get
nothing
another
more.
MRI, and if it's visible, I would get a biopsy. Know what
Right.
you're treating.
All right. So look, guys, we got to go because we got the MS people coming into the group. I just want to give a quick plug. We forgot to do it right the way through, but we've got our medical, we've got our Medicare webinar coming up at the end of the month. For those who are on webinar, we're going to go through all the issues about what to consider when you're rolling over from this year to next year, because open season starts, I think, next week on the 15th. So check it off on your calendar, the 30th. Tell your friends, because it's not prostate cancer specific. We're going to have a really good session. Excellent presenter from Triage Cancer and a very good Medicare broker. And so that's it.
Okay, good night, guys. Thanks very much.
You.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Is Richard. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, Steve R. Stay there for 1 second. Richard, stay there for 1 second before we, because I'm totally embarrassed that oh my gosh. Let's get rid of a couple of people here.
I was incognito.
You were incognito. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I wasn't even nice to you. Now
you were perfectly nice.
Now I'm really embarrassed. Hold on a minute. Oh, but Peter, you can stay on the line. Richard Oakton has got to go and see Richard Oakton. This is the infamous Richard. What's your pen name?
Oh, my alias, Richard Stanton.
Yeah. Richard Stanton. This is the infamous Richard Stanton, Peter Kafka.
We've met. We've met in May of 2020 when I was online.
Yeah.
I appear every 3.5 years.
Oh my gosh, I feel badly that I didn't recognize you.
You were fine.
Oh my gosh.
You gave me the information that I needed. Your advice was sound, and I may or may not act on it. I'm not going to Miami. I'm not going to Miami.
I know, but get your ass into Belusich, please, because
I think this is the insurance company's fault. I'm taking it. This is my 3rd level appeal, and I'm going to file a lawsuit against United Healthcare because they're wrong.
They are wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong, but I don't know if you're going to beat it.
I don't know why. I don't understand why they're giving me such a hard time on this when they've been really very good on everything else they've done in the last 15 years. I don't get it.
Steve, call FMI tomorrow.
Well, I did FMI. I called them and they have a program where you put in your income and things, and they were going to give me a 10% discount.
No. I don't want you to do it for that. I want you to call FMI and tell them how can they help you fight with your insurance company.
Oh, all right. Yeah, but Foundation Medicine is not an approved provider with United Healthcare. They want me to go to LabCorp.
No, LabCorp doesn't do this. LabCorp doesn't do it.
No, they don't know what they're talking
about.
about.
They said I don't. That's what they're saying.
Well, then maybe they're confused. LabCorp doesn't provide. They are approved with United Healthcare because I know people have gotten through United Healthcare. I can help you with United Healthcare with the FMI, but you start with FMI. Tell them what's going on. That UHC has a couple of times Oh, hold on a second. We have to stop the recording.
Oops.
That's okay. Okay. Hello, Frank.
I'll
Stay
come
with
back.
us. No. We won't close the room. We won't close the room. And hopefully
Okay.
we can, oh, we may have to close the room, but we may have to get another recording. But hang in there for a second.
I'll come back in. I'll call back.
Okay. Thanks. Tell the client services, because they're really great, Steve. Tell the client services that United Healthcare, your insurer, not Medicare. Oh, here's Kim. Kim,
Okay,
give us.
you got the message, Steve.
Steve, call me. Will
All
you
right.
call
All right.
me?
Yeah, or I'll send you an email. I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll help
Okay.
you, and because I know the people at FMI, and I know the patient advocates, and we can help you, and we'll get
I
it.
mean, I just want some of it is just I want to prove that UHC is just wrong, and take them through.
Okay, well we will. We will.
Yeah.
Not going to get away with it.
All right, they're not. And I'm so sorry to diss you like that. I feel
What are you
terrible.
dissing me? I don't understand. You were
Okay,
perfectly,
I wasn't.
you were
Okay.
perfect.
I feel better. I feel
Right.
better. I didn't think, I see Steve R. I'm thinking it's not Steve Rubin. It wouldn't be. It's
Right.
impossible that it's Steve R.
I don't
I'm so
show my
stupid.
face. That's why.
There you go, Miss Kim. I've got it. I'm closing the room so that we can start a new recording. Okay.
All right. By the way, both of you guys
Bye.
do a great job. Appreciate it. I watch every week, Mr. Costa.
I know.
Keep up the good work.
Miss Kim, I'm closing the room. Can you come back in a minute? Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Good night.
Okay. Goodbye.